Welcome back, everybody. My name is Poison Ducky, and let's get into this Skaven gameplay. We are versing the High Elves, and a little thing that I've noticed lately is that I played a few tournaments. I'm getting into the tournament play a little bit more right now, and I'm learning that when you get a best of 5, you have to be able to play more than 3 to 4 factions competitively, that is. So, my factions currently are Vampire Counts, Tomb Kings, Chaos, Vampire Coast, and right now I was kind of missing a 5th. And that's where Skaven comes in. I like Skaven because they kind of fit a similar playstyle to the Vampire Coast with their gun lines and ranged firepower. It's just that your frontline routes, and I didn't like that. It takes a lot more skill to deal with all these routing infantry. But with that aside, let's get into this army introductions. I have 5 units of clan rats with spears. It's not extremely powerful, but they get the job done, including the Regiment of Renowned Clan Vulcan Tail Slashers. Now, the pretty mean pick that I'm doing, little meme and mean pick, it's the Warp Fire Throwers. It's something you don't see as my Warp Fire cannon goes off. Warp Fire Throwers are not very powerful, but I believe they've gone a buff recently, very much to the, the Iron Breakers with Flamethrowers kind of unit. So they have a lot of anti-infantry, and they do a discourage ability. So it's a lot of damage, but even though if a unit is armored, you'll be surprised. They do a lot of damage to armored units, and I will be using that to full effect. So 2 units of Warpfire Throwers, and they're a little bit of a pseudo like Carnifex. They seem extremely dangerous, and you need to invest a lot of money to take these out, but they're like 500 gold. So if you lose them, yeah, you have other resources that you definitely spent. 2 units of Night Runners with slings, because I think you should have always a few sling units if it's Skaven, Night Runners. I had a lot of money. You tend to have a lot of money when left over when you're using the Skaven in terms of building your armies. And I'm going to have my Grey Seer as leadership. Now, it's on a Screaming Bell, which means it gives extra powers to unit vigor and leadership, which is really nice, and you get to see the good Skaven Seer just like cackling on his little bell as the bell tolls. Now I'm going to bring Ikit's Zap Zap. It's very important in the High Elf matchup to bring this unit, because what most High Elf players do, although my opponent doesn't, is going to bring a Lariel. Now Lariel is a potent spellcaster, and every single time the Zap hits somebody, some caster, or like if you fight greenskins or anything like that, it increases their ability by 10 seconds. So it makes everything recharge. You want to use it on them. Make sure they cannot use their character-specific abilities or spells, and it's very important here. Now, I really don't see that here, so I'm going to be firing at the Silverhelm Cavalry. That's beyond the point. Always bring it when you think you're fighting a very powerful, strong caster faction, in my opinion. I have 2 units of Rat Ogres, both with chevrons, a little extra gold, as I said earlier. Rat Ogres, I'm of the opinion that if you do not have Rat Ogres in your army of Skaven, I feel like you're doing it wrong, because Skaven have very few options to bring mass into a fight, and I believe Rat Ogres are essentially the most cost-efficient and best way to keep things in place in combination with spears. I usually mix ogres with spears, and you can deal with cavalry really effectively. Some more clan rat spears in the back just to have a sort of back line. So I have a pocket, right? Frontline swords, backline spears to deal with the cavalry force and some like any backline pressure, along with the powerful and majestic Hell Pit Abomination. Now, this thing is a anti-large specialist, does not have very much armor, and I really love like the remodel they did with this unit. It's just, every time I look at this just monstrosity of a beast, look at it, it has a spike of warpstone coming out of its mouth. This is just the most nasty creature you can ever think of, and I am so happy it's in my army. Now, overall, looking at its stats, it is anti-large, regeneration, and has this thing called Too Horrible to Die, meaning if it goes low on hit points, it will actually regain hit points or drop a unit of Skaven Slave with spears. So it's really, really good and versatile. I bring it just in case my opponent goes into a dragon build. So I kind of have tools for everything. Tools for our cavalry and casters, tools for dragons, tools for spearmen with the swords. I have tools for armored spears and sort of like white lions or any sort of super powerful infantry with the Warpfire Throwers, some Night Runners to deal with Illyrian Reavers. It's a very balanced build. Last thing I do have left, I forgot to mention you, Mr. Assassin. I do like Assassin just in case my opponent likes to bring the good old-fashioned princes on chariots, especially with the ability to use the Head Taker. Assassin's Trophy, not Head Taker, decreasing melee attack and melee defense. It's very powerful when your opponent spams princes on chariots and just cycle charge. You keep them in place with the rat ogres and spears. You put on the trophy head, and all of a sudden they can't do anything. Now my opponent here, Consul of Rome, had a really fun time versing him. He's going to go with a pretty cav archer spear heavy. He doesn't have elite infantry, but he has some powerful cavalry in the midst. Now he's going to have silver helms on the left side, along with the regiment around Herald of the Wind, Illyrian Reavers. So they're extremely quick with their 105 speed. I'm not catching that anytime soon. And of course, a unit of dragon princes. Now that is the main power. I am afraid of that, and I'm extremely afraid of that, with another vanguard deployed Illyrian Reavers far in the left flank. Now his front line is going to compose of spears, because most high elf front lines usually compose of that. He is going to get the Scions of Methlon, which increases a physical resistance, I believe. Damage resistance. It's just a ward save. Wow. So just a flat 12% damage resistance to units as long as you have magic. And he's going to have a backline of Lothar and Seaguard. Lothar and Seaguard, a perfect choice. They just defend themselves. You don't have to do too much micro. They just shoot, and if they get into combat, they get into combat, but they're anti-large shielded. They'll be just fine. One unit of White Lions of Thrace and the Prince on foot. You don't see footlords anymore, but they are cheap, and when you have a footlord, that means you can invest a lot into your army. A Mage of Heavens over here, and I think that's everything we need. So let's go into the combat. Let's take out the unit card here as we don't clutter. And the first engagements are going to start. My Ikit Zap Zap gets huge shots into the Silver Helms at the beginning of the game. I don't know how it did it, but it took off at least 2/3, and it's only a minute and 17 into this gameplay. Now he's going to be pushing forward with his archers and his spearmen. Now I'm going to screen out his, what are they called again? The Heralds of the Wind with my slingers, because I don't want to take any unnecessary fire that can't be forced, and he's going to begin cycle charging my front line with the Dragon Princes. Extremely good play, but I do change my rate of fire. I get my Ikit Zap Zap to fire at the Dragon Princes, as they are the #1 priority and most powerful unit in the army for sure. The frontline engagement is starting. Another great shot from the Ikit Zap Zap, and look at this power. You're going to see the might of the Warp Fire Throwers. They're going to be firing at some spearmen over yonder, and once they get their volleys in, it is good night. Just give them a little bit of time to set up. Where are they doing? Oh, there they start, and they're going to set. The fun thing about Warfire Throwers, though, is that they do have heavy, and I mean heavy, friendly fire. So they'll get some shots in, and I'll be moving my Screaming Bell to keep my units vigorous. Now I need to send back my Warpfire Throws, because the front line engagement here was completely destroyed with the White Lions of Thrace, and I need to stop him because the Archer Fire is focusing on my Warpfire Throwers, and they're going to rout. Now the Warpfire Throwers are going to make a concave, defend your projectiles with other projectiles, I say. And remember when I said even though it's not armor-piercing projectiles, they do plenty of damage? One volley, and that's like half the health of an elite, high-armored, armor-piercing unit. Now I'm going to have a summon of Clan Rats right here, make them get stuck in a place, and charge my Screaming Bell in there to try to stop any backline pressure and harass. Don't want them to get into my Ikit's Zap Zap, right? Now I have some units routing back and coming. It's the Skaven way. If they're not running away and coming back into the battle, it's not Skaven. And I'm going to have to deal with a lot of pressure in the front line as I juke my Hell Pit Abomination. No armor on this unit, only 50. Archers shred them with no problem. Now, really great play by my opponent. He gets the Heralds of the Wind into my artillery, and look how much HP damage is done so quickly. And I do a little bit of a mistake here, but let's be honest, when it's Skaven, it's not a mistake. I fire the Warp Fire Throwers into a group of my units, killing the Heralds of the Wind, but definitely killing more rats than High Elves, but one High Elf life is equal to maybe 10 Skaven lives, so if I can get one of them, it's okay. Some more amazing Warp Fire Thrower play. I just love these units. I started using them in campaign, but they're so effective as long as you get good lines of fire, and if you kill some Clan Rats while doing it, it doesn't even matter. I'm going to be using the abilities of the bell to make every unit has leadership, and look, just more fire. So over here on the left flank, I'm going to have a good old standoff with spear versus spears, and the silver helms from earlier have been just crushed by Rat Ogre spear play and the It Gets Zap Zap. Right now we have a pretty nice and clean back line. The Dragon Princes are low, and they're chasing my Gutter Night Runners. Night Runners are a little tough to chase. They're pretty fast, and they're okay in combat, so as long as the Dragon Princes don't get a very powerful charge, it'll be alright. Now I'm sending in Rat Ogres to try to even this out, and Rat Ogres armor piercing, they may not be anti-large, but they essentially are in the Skaven army. They fill an anti-large role, and that's what's important. So they're going to take out the Dragon Princes, and that's going to be a huge pick for my army. Now the Silver Helms getting into the Warp Fire throws, and I used a Bless with Filth to try to slow them down, reduce their weapon damage. Bless with Filth is a spell that makes everyone has imbued with poison, and I'm going to get my Rat Ogres and send them right back in to deal with the large units. But the Spearmen are coming in, and I need to get them out of there. Now, a few more volleys from my Warpfire throwers, and it's sort of a monster match right here as I have the Hell Pit Abomination, my Grey Seer, all of these rats staying together and getting pelted by arrows. And with this pelting of arrows, I need to send my clan rats into these archers and make sure they deal a little bit less damage. Now, if you may be wondering, where has my opponent's magic been? And that's because my assassin has essentially spent the entire game chasing off his magic. So one hero for all of his winds of magic use, I feel like that's pretty useful. Now, my opponent did forget of the Illyrian Reavers in Vanguard deployment until now, but he gets a good charge into my Warpfire throwers. Since they are high health, they still have martial prowess, giving them a lot of melee attack and defense. But it's too late. The Hell Pit Abomination is going to get in here, and he's going to terrify them and deal so much damage to these Illyrian Reavers. Now, I'm not sure how this happens. The Heralds of the Winds, with 12 models left, make it back into my It Gets Zap Zap, but with such low health and HP, 385, they will rout even to an artillery crew and a little bit of pelting fire from the Night Runners. So far, I have a pretty good situation. Balance of power is greatly in my favor, and I was, at this moment when I was playing this game, I thought I was losing because I didn't realize, I saw my units were at such low health, I just didn't realize how low health the High Elves were. I'm charging my Hell Pit Abomination into these good old Spearmen. Not the appropriate unit choice, but with terrifying power, that will be the win. It was a close victory, and a very fun one to watch for me. Now let's see our unit statistics. Now, I don't usually play Skaven that much, but I just really loved this build. Like 89 kills, 33 on these Warpfire throwers. I need to use these more often. That's so cool. Now, It Gets Zap Zap definitely carried the day. They destroyed so many. I would say they were solely responsible for like 90% of the damage on both the Silver Helms and the Dragon Princes, and that's a huge investment in money. Not only that, the Warpfire throwers and weapons teams in general have like 80 or 90 armor. I forgot the exact number, but they have pretty decent armor, so Archer Fire is not 100% effective against them, unless, of course, it's Sister of Averlorn Fire, you know. So, Night Runners doing their job, just kind of screening out. They just threw the slings, and whenever you have sling fire or sort of projectiles, you have a leadership debuff in combination with the leadership debuff of the Warpfire. So you found that the Spearmen got absolutely destroyed, and I would say, even though it says 89 and 33, you can add like 50 to that because they did kill a lot of clan rats. But you know, it's the Russians way. Skaven are practically just Russians if you're like being honest. Like, you're playing Russia in sort of company heroes or something like that, right? So Rat Ogres did a fine job, 53 kills on this, so that's fantastic. Got another chevron, and just dealing with the heavy armor and the cavalry, I was really happy. Hell Pit Abomination, you know, my opponent didn't bring a dragon, and that's where the Hell Pit Abomination would definitely shine. But obviously, if you get him into cavalry, it will also deal a huge amount of damage. And he's a huge priority target for the enemy archers to deal with, and not focusing on my Warpfire throwers, which were the actual MVP. I like the Grey Seer, and the Assassin did its job. That one kill, yeah, that was the Mage of Heavens. So, overall, pretty happy about this. I'm interested that my opponent brought a Footlord. Footlords I don't usually like unless they bring a lore of magic with them, like Vlad von Karstein, or maybe even Archaon, although most people bring Archaon on his horse, right? But overall, great game. Really enjoyed. Man, something about the Skaven. They are definitely going to be my next focus in putting them into my play style, learning how to fight with them so I can be much more competitive and be a better player overall. So guys, if you like the video, leave a like and subscribe if you want more. I'll catch you guys later.